So my name's Rachel, and I think this is my 18th summer at camp. I started in McCallum, and I was on main camp for a few years, and then I did, in some order, LIT, CIT, Outpost, Birches. I did Girls Trailblazers, bike trip. They had an IRL backpacking trip. It was called Pacific Northwest Adventure when I went on it, and then the Alaska trip. And then I was an AC1, an AC2, an SC, B&C area head, and then I have been a counselor in Outpost and have led trips as well. And now I'm the trip director. I think that when I think about all of my Camp Echo experience, I think that there's one story that really kind of brings it all together, and I still think about it after it happened. And when I did the Alaska sea kayaking trip in 2006, I was a camper, and there were 12 of us, and every single one of us was on staff as ACs that summer, and every single one of us had been coming to camp forever and ever. And our counselors knew this before they started the trip. And so in the beginning of the summer, they sent our parents a letter asking them to write a letter to us about how we had impacted them. And then they also found a counselor on camp for each one of us that had previously had us and asked them to write us letters too. And we had no idea about this. And so we went on the whole trip, and we would talk about the impact that we had on each other and like the impact that the trip was going to have on us later. And we never really thought about it. Like, these were just kind of TAPS questions that came throughout the trip. And then one of the very last nights, we were staying at this campsite where there was an island out offshore of our campsite that we were staying on. And when it was low tide, you could walk out to the island. But then when it became high tide, it became an actual island, and you couldn't get back to our campsite. And so our counselors came up to us when we were just hanging out by the beach one afternoon, and they said, okay, everybody stand up, go get all of the gear, put it in a pile. We have an initiative for you guys. So we all go, we get all the gear, we come over and we put it all down. And they said that we were gonna do an initiative that they were calling 12 people, 12 items, 12 hours, 1 rock. And the idea was that we had to, at low tide, walk out to this rock, and we were only allowed to bring 12 items collectively. We all were allowed to wear as many layers as we wanted so that we'd be warm. And we all had to wear life jackets at all times. One of us had to be awake at all times, and then our counselors were standing on like the other side, lifeguarding us the whole time. But we were only allowed to bring 12 items. And I don't remember exactly what we brought, but I know it was like a pot, and then we got to bring like all the ingredients to make mac and cheese counted as one. And then we got a spoon and a tarp and some other stuff. And we joked about taking the Frank's hot sauce because our counselor really liked it, and we thought it would be funny to like have it on the island, but we left it for him. And then we all wandered out to the rock and then spent the next 12 hours just on the rock, all of us. And I don't think any of us slept the whole night. And we just, we were really hungry when we got out there, but I think mostly because we just didn't know what to do with ourselves. So we chose this stick that was off of the island, and we decided that once the stick was covered with water, we would make dinner. So we all just basically sat there for a while staring at the stick. And then when it got covered by water, we ended up making our dinner. And then since we only had 1 spoon, we had to bite and pass the macaroni around in a circle. And then we just spent the rest of the night playing games and chatting and talking about our trip, and just laughing and like being in a little clump because we were cold, even though we had all of our gear. And we were all sleeping under 1 tarp because we didn't bring any of our sleeping bags. And every once in a while we would wave to our counselors, and then they would like run behind a tree and hide and pretend they weren't there. So the idea was that we were all by ourselves. And then in the morning, when the tide went down, our counselors came out and got us and walked us back to shore. We had breakfast and took a nap, and then when we woke back up, they had us all come talk to them, and they gave us all our impact letters that they had collected at the beginning of the summer. We got to read them and talk about, what it was like to be on the rock and like be so close to each other. And I feel like that was just an incredible experience in and of itself, and just being on the rock with the 11 other people that we were on the trip with was so funny. But I think about that to this day, about how I'm impacting the people around me and how camp has impacted me and my experience at camp impacts other people and then outside of camp too.